Hey guys, welcome to the Paint with Lovejoy website. This is the place for first-time and beginners to get comfortable with the painting process. If you have never painted, I am definitely the teacher for you. I will give you permission to play, to create with your hands, and I do consider this adult kindergarten, where you get to make memories with yourself or with loved ones. And you will notice that creative time is something that you will reference for the rest of your life. I do encourage you to send me photos of your paintings. And when you're done with my YouTube videos, please check out my Paint Your Pet course for even more in-depth and kind of my signature class. It's a lot of fun. Before we get started, I want to say thank you for being you. And I also want to give you permission to play today. I'm going to encourage that you take a lot of progress photos, and I do recommend that you turn off your distractions. Put your phone on mute. Please know that mistakes will happen. We call them happy accidents. And I'm going to encourage you to breathe throughout the painting process. Here are your recommended supplies and the colors for this particular video. This video also has a traceable, a line drawing at the beginning, and you can either purchase the traceable and transfer, or you could pause the video and draw it freehand, whichever you feel comfortable doing. Again, progress photos are important. And I'm going to encourage that you pause and play the video as much as you need and rewatch anything that you want. Now let's go ahead and get started painting. All right, guys, so grab your first progress photo. We are going to jump right into the background. And I'm doing a blue background and doing a mixture of white and blue. And it's going to be various shades by the time I'm done. So don't feel like you have to match the exact shade that I'm using right now. I do recommend that you apply your paint a little bit thicker, so that way you can cover the texture of the canvas and it will help for blending. If you happen to overlap the traceable lines, just because this is going to be white paint on the flower petals, I'm going to recommend that you actually wipe off any paint that's going to go on top of the flower petals if you happen to get your background overlapped on top of that. Now, as you're mixing your paint, color variation is totally okay. And I want you to do what I'm doing right now on the video, is grabbing a little bit of blue, grabbing a little bit of white, and just kind of mixing them together. It doesn't have to match the shade from the prior time that you made it, but it's just good to kind of, your brain will take in the information of how much white, how much blue, and also, again, it's just kind of a fun way to play with the variation. Now, if you are holding your breath, please pause, take a deep breath. You're doing great. The fact that you showed up, you're already successful, no matter how this painting turns out. And with this painting today, when we get into the petals, we are going to be working with very subtle color shifts and our brush pressure and brush control. So here you can see, definitely almost done with the background. I apologize for the autofocus. I forgot to set the lock when I did this. I'm still human, can't help it. So now we're grabbing the blue, slapping that blue in there, and then moving your brush on top of it. This is called wet on wet blending. It literally is exactly what you do on the plate when you mix the color, but now we're doing it directly on the canvas and kind of just having fun with it. So you can slap some of the blue on there. I'll even go in and slap some of the white on there, and it's really satisfying to slap paint on the background. So hit that brush on there, take out any frustrations, literally just have fun. And then go back with light pressure with your brush, play with those colors kind of mixing together, play with the pressure of your brush. I do like kind of this painterly brushstroke style that's showing up, so it's okay to get kind of expressive in your background. Take your progress photo when you are done with the background, and we're going to be moving into the petals, and we're going to go one petal at a time, and we're going to recreate the same formula for building good practice. So we're going to pull a little white aside, and I want you to make the lightest gray possible, which is a minuscule amount of black in there. And we're going for super light gray. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a base color, the light gray, on there. Then we're going to put a shadow and then a highlight. And this is a white lily flower. Even though the canvas is white, we have to create a little bit of an illusion. So that's why we're putting a light gray on there. So here you can see actually on the plate where I almost got a little too dark. So then I started a new pile with a little bit of the remaining medium gray on my brush and made a new pile to get to my super light gray. And even that on the screen is darker than I want it to be. So I'm going to grab some white and tone it down. So as you do today's painting, if your shades are a little darker than mine, that's okay. This is a painting that I would recommend that you do again in a month or a couple months from now. So that way you get more comfortable with your tools, your color mixing. And when you paint this a second time, you'll see how much improvement you have made. So again, for today's painting, we're just working on subtle color shifts. And that's why I labeled this as an advanced beginner painting. So I grabbed a tiny amount of black, super, super light pressure. I'm just placing it in a few areas, wipe off the brush, even clean the brush, and then go back with a little bit of the green, white with a little bit of green. We're going to place one more color on there, and then we'll do some blending. So it was the gray, so it's kind of muted, and then a little bit of green added to it, and that's going in towards the center. And I do want to warm it up, so I'm adding a touch of yellow. There we go. Very minuscule amount of pigment, so very, very subtle. Clean that brush, wipe off any excess water, and then with a damp brush, I want you to go back to these shades, really light pressure, slowly soften the lines from where these two colors meet. And this is something that gets better with more practice. Every now and then you can wipe off that excess paint onto your paper towel and then go back and do some blending. Take your time with this, go slow. We're working on brush control. And again, we're going to recreate this pattern and process on every petal. We're not going for perfection. We're just going for more comfort with your color mixing and your tools. So I need to intensify the green. So I've got a little bit of the direct green on my brush, placing it in there, wiping the paint off again, and then again with that light pressure going back because I want more green to show up. And what's happening is the new color that you introduced, the green, it is actually mixing with the gray underneath, and then it becomes kind of a muted gray green. Again, we're going for practice and comfort with your tools and your color mixing today. All right, you're doing good. Now we're going to grab some direct white. And on the opposite side, this is what we consider the highlight on the petal. And it's going to be hard for you to see on the video the difference between that really light gray and the pure white. Still go ahead and put it on there. And once we even do the other petals, it'll show up a little bit differently. So I'm going to recommend a progress photo, and then we're going to move into the next petal. And it is pretty cool with the progress photos to go back and look and see how much it looks different with each petal that you do. So again, going back to that super, super, super light gray, I'm going to go ahead and paint over the stamen or the pistil. Actually, I keep getting those backwards. So we're painting right over that with this super, super light gray. Again, I apologize about the autofocus. So just bear with it. I'm going to recommend that you pause the video as much as you need to. Go back and play, rewatch areas that you need. And if you need to, pause the video, take a screenshot, and you can zoom in closer to see some of the details and the placement where I put some of these colors. So now we've got our base super, super light gray on there. I'm going to switch over to the pointy brush. We're going to grab a darker gray, kind of a medium gray. And again, we're going to place them in a few areas. Then we'll add a little bit of the green gray and then wipe off the brush. And then we go back and play with the wet on wet blending. Again, you are strengthening your power of observation by looking at what I'm doing on screen, looking at the placement, and then mimicking that to the best of your ability at home. Again, not going for perfect. So I move back to that green gray, which was the gray with a little bit of green, placing it again in there, wiping that brush off, grab a little hint of yellow, tiny amount of that pigment over by the gray. Wipe the brush off again, clean it if you need to, and with a damp brush, not dripping wet with water, a damp brush, go back with light pressure and play with pulling that darker color into the base medium super light gray. And if you need to, you can always go back and grab more white. That will help with blending. Because that first light gray is wet, and then we introduce the other colors into it, this is what gives us that wet on wet base. Remember to breathe. You're doing great. Take your time. If you want, pause the video, finish the petal, move on to the next petal. Take your time. It's not a race. Now we're going into the white, being very generous with the amount of white. And again, where we put the white, this is where we imagine the sunlight would hit the petal first. And generally where the shadows are, the darker element, that's the last place, or the place where the light does not touch. And by using 3 shades, a light, medium, and dark, you are creating the illusion of a 3D object on a flat 2D surface. So again, going back to that super, super light gray with the medium flat brush or the small flat brush, filling in that entire petal. Then we'll put the darker shade and then the lighter shade. And had to refill the white there. All right, and again, if you're making your shades of light gray for each petal and it's slightly different, just embrace that for where you're at on today's painting. Too many places in your life you're expected to be perfect, and especially perfect from the first get-go. So this is a place you do not have to be perfect. We are just playing with the process. So again, you've got your light base gray on there with our medium gray and pointy brush, placing these lines where the shadows would be. Going to do a little bit of green, or the green gray. And if you have enough from prior, actually we're going to blend it in now. Sometimes I get a little out of order. There we go. So again, we're going to soften that, and then I'm going to realize that I forgot to add the green gray, and we'll go back and so again, there's multiple processes, multiple ways to work with paint. Here, grabbing that direct white, throwing the highlight in first. And this process that you're learning today with a light, medium, and dark shade, this is something that you can bring into other paintings. And as you get more photorealistic style, this is what you're going to be utilizing, is your value scale. And again, right now, I'm just trying to get you to see 3 values. There are many more values that you can paint as you get more comfortable with the process. But right now, today's painting, just looking for 3. All right, so moving into the next petal, I think we'll come back into the green on the other petal. So super, 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 super light gray on this on second to last petal. Then we'll introduce our shadow elements and then our highlight elements. And this is something that I'm going to recommend that you look at your painting from across the room. When we're done with this, I'm going to have you take a break and look at it from a distance. When we look at especially subtle color shifts like this from a distance, it makes more sense. So sometimes during the creative process, you have to kind of imagine that you're the viewer and look at your painting from a distance and then go back and make adjustments. Or when you look at it from a distance, you're like, that looks much better than I was thinking it looked up close. So getting out of our head, our critical mind, and looking at it from a different perspective helps in the creative process. So still kind of working in with that medium gray, that darker element on this particular petal. And now we're going to add the green. And I want this to be a little bit more bold this time, so I'm mixing just the yellow and green together. If you want, if it's too bright, add a little bit of gray to yours, but I have enough gray already on that petal that that's why I was using that. And again, it just kind of blended right in with it. Now we're grabbing the white, put the highlights on there. Again, these are super, super subtle shifts. So pause the video, take a progress photo, zoom in so you can see the places where I put the pure white. Take your progress photo. Definitely want you looking at those progress photos tomorrow and flipping through all of them. And again, back to that super, super light gray. And I can even tell on mine, this particular light gray is a little bit darker than the other ones that I made. And that's okay. You can add more white if you want to adjust, but if it's something that you don't see until afterwards, again, totally okay. The fact that you're painting and going through this process and hopefully challenging yourself with some of this blending and detailed work, you are pushing your skills already. All right, so again, going back to that kind of that medium gray, getting this highlight in here or the shadow in here, placing it in the areas, wiping the brush off, possibly cleaning the brush, and then going back and softening these colors. Hopefully by the end of this painting today, we've just got one more petal. You are more comfortable with your color mixing and with wet on wet blending. Again, you will take these skills into your next painting, and painting's not about being perfect, but continuing to evolve and grow your skills. So now moving back to that yellow green. And a lot of times with this particular yellow green on a white lily, it would be reflecting from the pistil and stamen on the inside that we'll add after this paint is dry. But sometimes what we have is what we call reflective color. So because those stamen and pistils are a kind of a light gray green, it would reflect onto the white of the petals. So that's why we have added that. All right, and going back to our super light gray for that last petal up there, we will get kind of heavy-handed with the next step in the shadow because this petal is behind those top two petals. Again, this is something that looks weird, but when you look at it from a distance, you go, yeah, it's a white lily. So up close, it may look like a gray lily, but from a distance, you'll be like, that is a white lily. All to create this magical illusion on a flat 2D surface. So again, here I'm using my medium gray mixture for the shadow. And again, just observe where I place it and mimic that to the best of your ability. And then that clean brush, light pressure, going back through to soften the transition from the medium gray to the super, super light gray. And then grabbing the white, heavy-handed with the white, and putting a few highlights in there. All right, great job. Take your progress photo, take a break. I want you to let this fully dry for about 10 to 15 minutes. I want you to notice how you feel. Maybe you're hungry, go get something to eat. Check out my Paint Your Pet class that I'm going to talk about, and then come back to the painting process. So this is my favorite class. I teach Paint Your Pet for the last 15 years. I teach in the realistic style and pop art style. Will not make you paint that fast. But you can at least see the realistic style that you'll get to with that. And this is my favorite part. Look at what an awesome job all my students did capturing the likeness of their pet. And then even better, look at how proud those pets are of their portraits. So all my students are first-time and beginners. It is amazing when you actually paint something that you love, how much more you learn and how much more energy you put into it. I do have in-person and online classes, so trying to have something for everybody. All my steps are super easy and logical, very, very easy to follow. You can paint your pet or favorite animal, no humans, but you can paint any animal in my class. You will impress your pet and yourself. So check out the Paint Your Pet course, check out that discount code, and let's go ahead and get back into your painting today. Again, I want you to look at your painting from across the room about 10 feet away. Hopefully your shading's looking more realistic from that perspective. And even if it's not, the next time that you do this, it'll make more and more sense. So the petals are fully dry. We're using a yellow and white or yellow and green mixture, heavier on the yellow side, adding a little more green for the petals. So again, For the petals and the stem, you can do any shade of green that you like. It doesn't have to match what I'm doing. But again, we're just kind of getting these different colors on there. Then we'll do the center parts of the flower and then an outline that is optional. So I'm using the medium flat brush, but if you need to, you can use a pointy brush or something different if these are still considered tight spaces for you. So again, just kind of observe where I've placed the darker green, maybe the lighter green. You could even take each of those shapes and just do different shades of green and it will still look pretty awesome. All right. Nicely done. We are what we call the underpainting. Take your progress photo. There is no canvas space showing. And now we're going to start moving into some of the details. Again, you do want your petals to be completely dry. And we're going to go in with a green and yellow for these stamen and pistils on the center of the flower. So again, pointy brush, yellow and green, probably a little heavier on the yellow side because those little stamen and pistils in there are almost a little translucent on real ones. All right, so just kind of placing a dot for where I want that stamen or pistil to end. If you can still see the traceable underneath your paint, then you can kind of reference that because we did paint over that section. But basically, it's kind of a bulbish shape on the end and then a line moving down to the center. So now I'm going to use yellow and burnt sienna, heavier on the yellow side. And we're going to put the end of, I think it's called the pistils. Somebody please leave a comment. Let me know the difference because I'm confusing them in my head. So these are that yellow and raw sienna mixture, and these are just little dash marks. They almost look like little beans. And we're placing those first, and then we'll do a kind of a green line that shoots to the center. So this would be where the pollen is for pollination and fertilization for the flower. Now grabbing the green, and from the ends of each of these little bean-looking shapes, we're going to pull a line to the center. And they don't have to be straight lines. Everything in nature is pretty organic and curved. So again, does not have to be perfect. All right, excellent job. Take a progress photo. This next step is entirely optional. If you do not want to do it and you like your flower how it is, please skip this step. This next step, we're going to outline the petals with black paint and a pointy brush. Again, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. I do this because I do teach first-time and beginner painters, and when we do the outlines, especially for my early painters, this helps kind of clean up the edges and kind of sharpens up your image. So that's why I do that. Again, if you don't want to, don't do it. So as you're working with the pointy brush, if you choose to do this, you want to kind of keep an even, consistent pressure. So I recommend exhale as you touch the brush to the canvas, and that's going to help steady out your hand. And I also recommend treating the brush kind of like a pencil. So I want you to hold the brush at kind of a 90-degree angle, perpendicular to the canvas, and use just the last 2 millimeters of the bristle. So again, treating it like a pencil and just light pressure using the tips of the bristle. This does get easier with more practice. So to help steady this out, sometimes I rest my forearm against the edge of the table, which is what I'm doing right now, and you can't see it in the video. Or like right here, I'll put my pinky out and use that as a bit of a steady pivot point for my hand. So try both. Because I'm shooting the video, I keep the painting in the same orientation. But if you want to, turn the painting sideways, turn it upside down, anything that's making it easier for you to make a particular arc or a particular shape in the line. Take your time. Breathe. This is not a race. If you do want to swap out and use a Sharpie marker for this step, you can do that too. I have recently, not for this particular painting, but I have had students switch out the outline color for different colors. So that's also an option. Really, there's a lot of options in art. So that's why I encourage you to trust your instincts, and I encourage you to deviate from what I may be doing on screen. Trusting your instincts in the creative realm is super empowering because the more you can trust it in the creative realm, hopefully the more you learn to trust it in real life, in the real world, the functional world. All right, again, breathe. You're doing great. This is going to take us into the conclusion of today's painting, and this was a more challenging painting today with the subtle color shifts. So I do recommend when we're done, put this on the wall. Do not look at it until tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, you'll have fresh eyes and hopefully see it from across the room and go, wow, that does look more 3D than I thought. So again, sometimes we have to trick our brain into seeing how awesome we actually did. So again, take your last progress photo, look at your progress photos tomorrow. Excellent job today. I'm very, very proud of you. Thank you for painting and thanks for hanging out with me for a little bit. Please send me photos of what you paint, tag me in social media or email them to me. Definitely check out the Paint Your Pet course when you're ready. And until next time, cheers.